the apostles to follow him. The call continues. We still call on God, and God still calls on us. 2,010 years since his incarnation, Christ continues to call us to charity. We might have a more difficult time hearing the call, because the call can get muffled by the iPod or YouTube, or any number of other digital age distractions. But the age of information does not always provide us with answers. In these times of radical change on almost every front, all of us are looking for something to believe in. I want to emphasize today that we find it here in our parish, here in our church, here in our hearts. We are called by God to be with God. That's what the Archbishop's annual appeal supports: communion with the church and collaboration with God. Today, as we launch the Archbishop's annual appeal, I want to share with you a true success story that illustrates grace at work in the world and reminds us of the glorious way our annual appeal works in the lives of people. The hero of our story is a Baltimore native that we'll call John. John joined the Marines in 1967 at the age of 18, and he served for 30 years. After his retirement from the military, John went to work at various jobs. He was working in a textile mill when he fell ill. After surviving 2 cancers and 4 surgeries, John lost his job when the mill laid off workers. When his savings dwindled, John found himself unable to pay his bills. Eventually his power was turned off, and resorted to candles for light and piles of blankets for warmth. For food, John began going to one of our archdiocesan food lines. John recalls that after being fed, he felt called to help feed others. Heeding his call, he volunteered to help. Now John volunteers at Our Daily Bread 7 days a week. He wears extra layers of clothing during the winter, so he can share a sweater or jacket with someone who's cold. He lovingly gives guests the shirt off his back, literally. Do you really believe that Christ gave away everything, even his life, for our benefit? For a moment, let us gaze upon the crucifix in your sanctuary, just for a moment. Every time we look at a crucifix, we are reminded of the Lord's love. Today, in every parish of the Archdiocese of Baltimore, parishioners are listening to this message. And though our churches differ in age and architecture, in size and in socioeconomics, what unifies us as Catholics is the crucifix. When you look at the crucifix, I hope you feel the power of selfless love. It's the key to any happy life, any happy marriage, any happy friendship. Selfless love is a gospel value deeply embedded in human nature. The truth that to the extent we give, we will receive. Today, I'm asking you to give and to receive. I'm asking you to follow the example of John, who heard God's call, answered God's call, then developed a buoyant, selfless love of God and of his neighbor. A love that led to service and deep satisfaction. This is the way John puts it. God named every star in the heavens, but he knows your name. And when God calls, you got to listen. I urge you to join me in listening to God's call to selfless love by pledging to the annual appeal. The appeal supports food lines and people like John, as well as dozens of far-reaching ministries and services that extend the compassion and selfless love of our Lord to our community. Today, I urge you to bless others by sharing what God has given you. I encourage you to make a gift inspired by your gratitude, trusting that God will continue to bless you for your willingness to hear and to follow your calling to selfless love and loyalty. Now, please listen as your pastor or pastoral life director guides you through the Archbishop's annual appeal pledging process. And thank you for your